Hey, what's up, everyone? I am here with Nathan Shields, the founder of PTOclub.com, CEO of Rise Diagnostics, co-founder of Rise Rehabilitation Specialists in Arizona. And Nathan grew that clinic to 4 locations in 4 years and eventually sold it. Is that correct, Nathan?
Yeah, that's a very truncated version of it. I've been a PT clinic owner since 2002, and eventually, then along with the help of my business partner, Will Humphreys, he and I grew it to a point where we sold it back in, what was that, 2015? No, 2018.
Gotcha. Okay. So you've basically been owning PT clinics, managing it for about 25 plus years? 20.
Well, yeah, I graduated from PT school in 1999, started that clinic in 2002. So, we're at the end of 2001, a couple decades in the industry as a PT owner.
That is crazy. So thank you for taking the time to jump on the podcast
No
and video
problem.
with me to share
Yeah.
your knowledge and wisdom of owning a PT clinic for 20 years. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
I'm flattered that you would reach out, man. That's awesome.
that. Awesome. So one thing I wanted to start off with is, what would you say, I guess, in your years of managing a physical therapy clinic is what would you say is like the hardest part of owning a PT clinic, just business wise?
The hardest part, I think it can come down to a couple of things. The first being sometimes you can feel like you're alone on an island as a business owner. In your clinic, you feel like you're the answer man. You probably feel the same way,
Oh
Edric, in
yeah,
owning a business, right?
for sure.
And it's not necessarily PT specific, but it's small business owner um, specific in that you feel like you're the answer man. You're responsible for everything, especially if you're in your smaller, newer clinic or business. It's all dependent upon you. The E-Myth Revisited, that book by Michael Gerber, kind of illustrates it perfectly in that it's all dependent upon you. You are all the systems, you are all the jobs, you are everything, right? And
Right.
that can be one thing to be that becomes difficult. And then the second thing is being a business owner of a PT clinic specifically is we didn't get any training. I'd say 99.8% of us, maybe. I'll leave a little room there for somebody who did have an MBA before opening up their PT clinic or had some business ownership prior to that. But our PT training was PT specific and it was not business specific. And that can be hard for some PT owners to tolerate because we are high achieving individuals. We have master's and doctorate degrees. We've done very well to simply get into PT programs and pass our PT exams. But we have to recognize that we didn't get business specific training. And so to simply hang our shingles out and say, I have a clinic now and I provide great physical therapy care simply isn't enough. It doesn't typically equate to having a successfully run business.
Right. Okay. So what you're saying is the lack of training, from being a physical therapist, getting that master's and doctorates, and then jumping into owning a business, which I'm guessing you have a lot of overhead as if you're going to open up a physical therapy clinic, and then going through all of that, the struggles is the difficult part. Well, not just for PT clinics, but just for almost every business out there.
I think something that rang true to me, I know I've learned it in my past, but Eric Miller of Econologics shared a concept at a conference that I was at regarding the three hats of a business owner. And a hat is simply your responsibility, your job, your duty, if you will. And those three hats that we wear as business owners are the owner hat, we own the business, the administrator hat, we're managing people, systems, you name it. And then there's the technician hat, that hat or that job that actually produces the product. In our case, the technician hat would be the physical therapist hat. And all of us as business owners wear all of these three hats. Yet our responsibility is to eventually start shedding at least one of the hats and eventually two of the hats, so that you only sit in the owner hat. Now, and that's a hat that you can never get rid of. So when I say shedding one of the hats, you can either be an owner technician, or you can be an owner administrator. And your job is to figure out what you want to do and hire and delegate and train someone else to take over that other hat. Now, most PT clinics that I've been a part of in terms of coaching them, those PT owners that are stuck, and the PT owners that I've seen become successful are the ones that shed the technician hat and step out of providing the patient care directly one-on-one, full-time at least, and spend more time in their owner and administrator hat, training individuals to produce better as physical therapists, but also making sure the systems are running well so that the patient experience is good, that they're maximally productive, that they're getting maximum reimbursement on the care they provide, managing marketing systems, which you know all about, managing recruiting and hiring systems and programs, and the training of the people. That the most successful PT owners are those that shed that technician hat and live successfully in the owner administrator hat. And the most successful ones, the top 5% of PT owners, are the ones that eventually shed the administrator hat as well, delegate and train a leadership team, and now they sit comfortably in the owner hat running from above.
Gotcha. Okay. How long would you say it took you to get rid of that technician hat when you first started your clinic?
Oh man, that took a long time. So that's why I get so excited when I talk to PT owners and I coach them when they're only like a year or two into their PT clinic ownership, and they're looking to grow their business and achieve more and do more. Because 2 years into ownership, man, I wish I had done what I'm coaching owners to do now earlier on in my ownership journey, because I would have saved so much money. I would have accelerated my progress so much faster. It took me, at least a good 10, 12 years to get out of patient care, because I didn't know. There's so many more resources now for owners now than there was when I started in 2002, whether it's coaches, consultants, the APTA's support for private practice owners, all that is so much better, and there's so much more available to us. But back then, I was just a physical therapist that happened to own a business. And if you had asked me back in the day, people would say, how's your business? How are you doing? And I'd say, you know what? I love treating patients. I hate running the business. And it showed. I was relatively successful financially. I was doing okay. And I had, one or two other providers, but we were pretty stagnant. We weren't really going far. And I didn't really, I can say I was a poor leader at that time, until I figured out how important it was to step out of patient care and take the time to run my business. And that is one of the most successful actions that a PT owner can take, is stepping out of patient care at a minimum 2 half days a week to work on their business.
Gotcha.
But it took me a decade or more to get out of that. Wow. And it was a hard transition.
Wow. Was it because you like treating so much, or you didn't like the business aspect, like the running the business aspect, that led you to stay in that technician role?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things that go into it. And this is typical of most physical therapists, especially physical therapy owners, in that our identity is wrapped up in the care that we provide, right? So I've spent, if you consider the whole length of my education to get to a master's degree, which I have in physical therapy, is all about being a physical therapist, practicing physical therapy. And this is what I am. I'm a physical therapist, right? And so what makes it difficult is that you're telling me to not do what I've been trained to do for the past 20 plus years. And the second part of that is, well, what am I going to do with that time? Again, it goes back to the business training. I don't know how to run a business. I'm just a really good physical therapist that gets results for patients. So what am I going to do with that time that would make it productive, and that would make it worth it for me to step away from treating patients? Because our mindset is, not only am I a physical therapist, but how do I generate money for a business if I'm not seeing a patient one-on-one?
Mm,
Right.
right.
So, because we can easily equate our treatment time, that hour that I do with patient care returns back to me at so many dollars per visit, whatever that rate is, $90 per visit. Right. So I know that my value is tied up in that patient care, but not knowing that your business needs more from you, and your business could do more from and your employees could do more if you spent time in the administrative part, but we just don't know what that looks like. It's very nebulous. I mean, yeah, you need to spend admin time. It's easy for me to say that and tell you that's what is needed, but you don't have any training on what you would do with that time. So is it worth it? What am I going to do? Pay bills, catch up on my documentation,
Look at email.
look at emails. I mean, these are unproductive things. And that's where it's vital, imperative that PT owners get some kind of business training. That by hiring a coach, that's what we teach you to do. I do that. There's others in the space that do that as well. Read books, listen to podcasts. I have my podcast where I interview PT owners as well. Physical Therapy Owners Club podcast. There are so many more resources for you now, but getting that kind of training and paying the tuition, if you will, of what it takes to run a business and what you would do with that admin time.
Right. Was there a certain trigger where one day you were like, Jesus, I can't do this anymore. Like I have to figure out the business side of this, or was it a slow progression?
You know what it was is, so my business partner at the time was Will Humphreys, and he said, "Hey, I signed up for this free course. Well, he might have paid a couple $1,000, but he wasn't a business. We were kind of semi partners at the time, and the story is kind of long and drawn out, so I won't get into it. But we were semi business partners at the time, and he said, I signed up for this course, and I can bring someone else for free. So why don't you come with me? And it's about business, how to improve your business, right? I think it was actually marketing based, like how to increase your referrals or something like that. And so we went up to Seattle and went to that conference or to that training. And it was just he and I and one other guy, Steve Rodriguez. He's a stud. And they took us through this training for 2 or 3 days. And of course, at the end of the training, they're like, okay, we can show you so much more, but you've got to pay tens of thousands of dollars for it.
Yeah.
And it was during that meeting, though, that I turned to Will, somewhere along the course of the weekend, I turned to Will and like, dude, we've got to do things differently. Like I've been doing this for over a decade. There's so much more that we can do. I don't know what else to do, but I know that something has to change. And I could see the burnout coming if I wasn't already there at the time. I knew that, employees were probably ripping me off. I knew that our production wasn't where it could be, it wasn't maximized. So that's the option that's presented in front of me right now. And I'm telling you, this was like over $50,000. I'm like, let's pay it. Let's do it. Let's get trained. Let's get some, and again, I considered it, well, at the time, I didn't think this way, but now I look back on it, that was my tuition to get some business training, right? I paid for it and it paid off in spades, on the back end. The ROI on that was great and super valuable. But it was that point where I said, I need to make an investment. I need to make a sacrifice in order for this to change for the better. And when we did that, then things just changed dramatically.
Wow. That was when the clinic that you eventually sold with Will, right?
Yeah. So at the time, just real short summary is I had a clinic, he had a clinic, or he might have had two. And then we also shared in another clinic. And so it was kind of a his and ours type of situation. and, and, and so we eventually merged all those four, really honed in our procedures, developed a leadership team. Profit margins were amazing. Productivity was through the roof, to the point where when we did come onto the market to sell, we came to the market with about, honestly, about 20 something other clinics. And of those other 20 clinics from different areas of Phoenix and the different states, we had the highest profit margins pretty easily. We had a culture and a leadership team that was better than anyone else had. Very proud moment of ours to see how well we did, and also to grow it to the point where we could sell it for what was at the time probably 3 to 4 times what most clinics were getting on the market.
Wow, that's really impressive to hear. And maybe I might even sign up for your business coaching, even though I'm not a physical therapist. Just hearing that.
Well, honestly, Edric, and not to sell to you, but a lot of what I'm doing in the coaching is typical small business stuff. I just have that experience from a PT side of things,
Right.
and that needs to be implemented. Right? It's a matter of, and many times I have to go back to very fundamental things. What are your purpose, values? What is your mission? Let's get clear on those things, because if you're going to grow and expand outside of yourself, you need to be very clear on it so you can find other people that are aligned with you, right? And some of that doesn't feel like you're getting a lot of traction initially when I'm doing coaching sessions, but I promise you it pays off down the road. Like I said, as you start hiring aligned people, and more importantly, getting rid of people who aren't aligned because they're holding you back from growth. But then it gets into, okay, what are your key statistics? And most PT owners, well, maybe most isn't the right word, but a large number of PT owners don't track the key statistics on a routine basis. And it goes beyond that. What are the key statistics and how are they trending? Are they going up? Are they going down? And why? And what do we need to do next? Right? So it's some of that stuff. It's HR related issues, how to handle people, how to put in programs to make your clinics more productive. Those are things that some of them are kind of fundamental business type things.
Right. It's like, it goes back to the saying where things aren't easy, but it's simple to achieve or accomplish, right? There's a number of things, or a list of things that if you do it, if you are aware of it, first of all, and then if you do it and execute it properly, you're going to have X result. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it goes back, and there's a reason why so many small business books are popular, because across all genres or all industries, it's because we all have that same small business entrepreneur dilemma. It's why in some of the books that were important to us, that I recommend my coaching clients read, E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, Think and Grow Rich, especially the first 4 chapters of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, Traction by Gino Wickman, many of the books by Mike Michalowicz. These are all, they're not industry specific, but they can very easily be applied to our clinics.
Gotcha. Awesome. Now, as a business coach, did you have to learn how to be a coach as well when you started PTO Club and started coaching other clinic owners?
I actually did. I took a course on coaching. I spent the money to hire a coach to be a coach. And you might be surprised to know I even have a coach now.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, not necessarily, well, more business related, but yeah, a little bit on the coaching side. And I've read books, just looking at my library behind me, there are a couple books in there about the coaching habit is a really good one about how to be a coach. And that's a very important book, again, for leaders to read when they start doing one-on-one meetings and they want to coach their teams. I mean, that's essentially what the leader becomes, is coaching other people to be more successful within their business and holding them accountable. And so, yeah, reading a couple books, took the course. I had some great mentors, if you will. I have coaches myself, but I got coached myself. And so I do some of the same things they did.
Gotcha. And what is the if you don't mind me asking, what does like the format of your programs look like with your clients?
I don't know if it's necessarily unique. A lot of other coaches might follow the same format, but yeah, for most PT owners, if they haven't had any coaching before with me or anyone else, then I recommend a 7-month accelerator program where we spend 7 months meeting twice a month, usually for about an hour, hour and a half, to focus on the fundamentals that I shared with you, to track their statistics and see which way they're going, to talk about, okay, it looks like you need to start recruiting. Let's talk about your recruiting plan. What are you doing for it? Let's talk about your marketing efforts. What are you doing for marketing? What are you doing to capture past patients or get current referrals? How are you holding your team accountable? How are you doing regular meetings? So we start establishing some pretty fundamental things, but at the same time, dealing with any current issues that they're dealing with. So I want to say there is a plan to the 7-month program, but I don't neglect the fact that they might get on the phone and say, hey, my PT just quit. What am I going to do? Well, I'm not going to say, well, let's get through this stuff first and we'll talk about your PT. No, we'll talk about how to handle that and then put my stuff in place.
Right.
So
Okay.
I like to think that I'm rather reactive in that regard. After that 7-month period, then we kind of have a discussion. And a lot of my clients tend to then fall into what I call the CEO mentoring program. And that's where I meet with you once a month instead of twice a month. And, again, still we're tracking statistics, but I feel like I'm kind of taking on the responsibility of a CEO per se of their company. Like I'm trying to mentor them on what a CEO would do in their company and what they should be doing then in the future, right? So a CEO would say, hey, bring me your statistics, bring me your problems and issues, and tell me what your recommended solutions are, and we'll work it out, and I'll give you some guidance. And hey, by the way, down the road, you need to consider this if you're not thinking about it right now. What are your goals for 2022 at the end of the year? Let's make sure we're heading in that direction. And are we still staying true to our purpose and values?
Gotcha. That sounds exciting. Yeah. Yeah, I know that some of the top performers in the world, they all have coaches, trainers, and consultants like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant,
Oh
had
yeah.
had Tim
Oh,
Grover.
of course. Yeah. Roger Federer. I'm Tiger Woods. Even at the top of their game, they had coaches, right?
Yeah, for sure. You don't know what you don't know, right?
Right. And when I don't remember the phrase, but when you're in the picture, you can't really see it, right? So, what like a really exciting, a couple success stories, if you don't mind, I can share
Yeah.
of coaching clients that I've had just recently. So I got off the phone with a couple of coaching clients, PT owners in New Mexico. These women are awesome. They've kind of niched down to treat scoliosis patients, and they have as many patients as they want, essentially. Like they've got a 2 to 3 month waiting list of new patients trying to get in.
Wow.
And so when I came on with them this is about 6-7 months ago, they were still treating each of them, 20 to 30 hours a week. They weren't tracking any statistics. They didn't have any policy and procedures in place. They know they wanted to expand to multiple clinics in the future. And they knew they needed more space themselves. And what was super exciting, and this was just a couple of days ago, I got off the phone with them. In that 6-month period, they had hired 1, 2, 3 more physical therapists running close to full-time, if not full-time.
In how long?
Over the 6-month period, 6 to 7 month
6
period
months.
that I was working with them. Yeah. And 3 new physical therapists. They moved into a new space in which they could now offer yoga classes and parent nights and all kinds of trainings and in-services for the community. They're looking, and this is probably most important, they had increased their gross revenues 33% over a 6-month period. They had also decreased their treating times to where one owner was no longer treating, and the other owner was down to maybe 4 or 5 hours a week, right? And importantly, she's pregnant and due in just a couple of months, so this was vital to her.
Right.
And now they're looking, after the baby comes in early next year, in spring of next year, 2022, they're looking at their second location. They've got policies in place on how to train physical therapists. They're adding more to their front desk staff. They've got a marketing strategy that is amazing, that their marketer is working on. And they're all now, and they have an organizational chart of people and responsibilities, and they are well on their way to doing amazing things. And they made such amazing growth. It's exciting to share that kind of success story, you know?
Yeah, no, it sounds like they have a roadmap for success that they can follow now, where they're not stuck in their business, like in that technician operator role and more.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what one of them, who's kind of the designated clinic director, she said, you know, just a few months ago, I didn't know what to do as a clinic director. Like, I didn't know what stats you were talking about. I didn't know how to train somebody. And now I know what stats are specific to being a clinic director and why they're important. And I also know exactly how to train a physical therapist to be successful in that business and hold them accountable to be productive. And that was, for her to now have that kind of control over that position in that company, makes it really easy for her to now train the next clinic director in their company and expand to that second location. And they did that all in this last 6 to 7 months. I was super impressed.
Wow. Yeah. Sounds like a recipe, yeah, for continued success down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you were talking about, holding staff accountable. That's something, you know, I have issues with myself. Well, could you maybe share some tips on how to do that for other clinic owners?
Well, yeah, I think one of the biggest things to get down to is, number one, okay, determine what position they have in your company, right? And maybe it comes with a title. And then recognizing what they produce. Like, what is their main product? If you make Twinkies, your product is making Twinkies, right? If you're a shoemaker, you should be making lots of good shoes, right? In physical therapy space, if you're a physical therapist, you should know that you're providing quality physical therapy. Well, there's kind of 3 parts to it. You're providing great therapy, right? You're doing great documentation and billing accordingly, right? Those are your main 3 things. And if you're at the front desk, your job is to fill the schedules. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done behind that, but you could get distracted, is what I'm trying to say. If you're not really clear, and you as leader need to make sure that the people who are there are really clear what their product is. And that's where I fell off as a leader initially, is I'd hire somebody as a technician.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just default. I thought I was really cool. And I would just say, your job is to do whatever I tell you to do. That's your job. Well, that gives you no clarity. And that's what I fell into, because I wasn't clear, right? I wasn't clear as a leader what my product was. And my product was to get the people who I work with on my team as productive as possible to produce that product that we produced, right? And if I did that and my profits were good, I made my product. And if a front desk person is really good at filling the schedule, then they're a real good front desk person, right? Their job, and sometimes that, and so what I mean by distraction is sometimes that front desk person could be thinking that their job is to verify insurances, like be on the phone with insurance companies to get the benefits, at the sake of scheduling the patient who's leaving for their next appointment. All right. Or at the sake of collecting that copay. Right. So recognize now there are products, there are also sub products that can be as important, like collecting all the copays that are due that day from patients that come in. But the main product is to get everybody in and fill that schedule. Don't let those patients drop off. Don't let them cancel, don't let them stop therapy. The front desk main responsibility is to fill the schedules. The main responsibility of the therapist is to see as many patients as possible, ethically and quality wise, and bill and document appropriately for it, right? And then for the technician, what I would tell them now, their job is to support the physical therapist, not to treat patients for the physical therapist, but support the physical therapist so that they can get home at a reasonable time without any notes to be done at the end of the day, right? If a technician's doing that. So that's just an example in a PT setting, where you start is getting really clear, like what is your main responsibility? And you as a leader need to be clear as to what everyone's posts responsibilities are. What is their one key product, and what is the stat that tracks that, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah,
Now,
I'm starting
so
to see what you're talking about.
so if you have a product and you have a stat, then you can tell if that person's performing their job well by the stat. You know, you don't say, so if in your case, someone is supposed to create social media content and that's their one job, right? Well, how much social media content did you produce this week? Right. And if you want to take a step further, how much really captivating social media content quality social media content did you create this week that we can use, right? And that would be their job. That's their product. And if they do that well and they do a lot of it, they're even more powerful.
Wow. Yeah, that's super powerful. I can see how someone who is like maybe managing a bunch of locations that is not profitable, just being really clear on, what's going on, everybody's roles, their products and their KPIs, getting on a call with you to figure all of that out. I can see how valuable that would be as a CEO/owner of the clinic.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where it's really clear. It helps when, for a small business owner, it helps to be clear on those things, right? And it really helps to kind of sketch out the organization. You know, you hear about org boards or organizational charts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To really sketch out what the different positions are in your company, so you know where everybody lands and what their responsibilities are and how they're connected to each other. And
how often would you have somebody update those organizational charts? Do you update it often, or is it something that you do and then you don't look at it for the next 6 months?
No, and it's going to change, especially as you hire and fire people, because that organizational chart, although it has a position like physical therapist, there's going to be a number of physical therapy names underneath it, physical therapists themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And you as the owner CEO, you're going to have your name in multiple positions across that org chart, right?
Right.
So
right.
For a PT owner, you're going to be at the top as an owner. You're going to be underneath that as a CEO is going to be your name. And if you're like these two women in New Mexico, one of you is going to be the head of the clinical operations, the clinical director, and her name's going to go there, as well as the CEO or the co-CEO and co-owner in her case. The other one's going to have her name over the financial division. One of them is going to be responsible for the marketing division. And so your name, if you're a sole owner, is going to be littered across that organizational chart doing all the things, right? And you want to keep that updated and find people to delegate and take those spots. So then you would update the organizational chart at that time.
Right. Let's say you map out the organizational chart and your employees aren't doing their jobs. What do you do like in that scenario? Like, how would you address it? How would you teach your clients to address it?
Yeah. In that situation, maybe we would role play a little bit, but it would probably start where, hey, John, wanted to bring you in because I want to just make sure that we're on the same page, right? And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about your position and what expectations are, and go from there. And so let's just talk about that. And in doing so, tell me in your own words, what is your main product? Like, what do you produce? What's your main responsibility? And they could go on, and they'll probably use a lot of words and be very effluent and talk about this, that, and the other thing. And I would say, okay, I want to, again, I want to make sure we're getting on the same page. To be clear, your responsibility in blankety blank physical therapy is to be a physical therapist, and your main product is to treat physical therapy, or to provide quality care and document and bill appropriately for that care. Now, can we agree to that? That's essentially your main, I mean, we're talking about main products. This is your main responsibility, right? That one thing. If you're doing that one thing well, you're doing really well in my company. Can we agree to that? Okay, cool. Okay, there's one statistic that tracks that. And do you know what that statistic is that I'm tracking? And they'd say, what? Well, probably the number of visits that I'm like, yeah, that's your one key stat. So my expectation, and this is what we had back in the day, our key expectation was that you're going to see 60 visits a week, and you're going to document and bill appropriately for those 60 visits a week. That's your minimum baseline expectation to get the salary that we agreed upon, right? And so I might not share all that information with him, but just as a point of reference. And then coming back to the conversation, I'd say, so that one key statistic is total visits. And remember our minimum expectation, right? And say, yeah, 60 visits. Do you know where you've been the past few weeks? I haven't quite hit that. That's why we're having this conversation today. For this to be a win-win relationship, we need to talk about what you can do to increase the number of the visits that you're seeing, so that we can have this win-win relationship. Now that conversation could go a lot of different ways, but what I'm trying to show there, Edric, is that I want this to be I want to put the problem out on the table without any finger pointing or blaming, and making really clear that the focus is understanding, that we both understand each other well, and that we are both going to talk about this issue, but it's ultimately their responsibility to come forward and produce what they're supposed to produce, and trying to invite them into that conversation.
Gotcha. Have you, in the past, after the business training, have you ever had to let go of any employees that weren't performing?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah, and this is where, but please understand, this is where I am now. I probably would have handled that conversation significantly differently 10 years ago, right? But that's another hiccup for most small business owners. Some are very much better at it, at holding people accountable, because most PT owners, they have a commonality in their personalities such that they like to be liked. They are the nice guys. They are the heroes that come in with a cape, but they're very nice and compassionate towards everything about the patient, right? Their pain, their financial issues, their family issues. They're very compassionate people.
Right.
So to hold someone accountable on their team who they love and respect can be very difficult for them, because they don't know how to do that without creating some offense, without them getting defensive, without making it a us, me versus you type of relationship. And so they have to get some coaching and maybe walk through and role play some of those scenarios, so that they feel comfortable recognizing how they can invite the person without being able to control how they're going to respond. They could fly off the handle, but know that what you're doing is the right thing and be okay with it.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome. Cool. Let's see. Taking a look at my long list of questions here. Here's one thing I kind of want to explore or talk about. Would you say that a lot of PT clinic owners, the reason why they're not succeeding is it like a mental thing? Is it like something that's holding them back, or is it like a lack of knowledge, or like a lack of belief in themselves? Like, I don't know. Tony Robbins talks about that a lot. Like it's like success is it's like a lot of it is mental.
Totally. Do you have an option there for D, all of the above? Yeah, I mean, it's all that stuff, man. It goes back to, we don't have the business training. We don't know what we don't know. where what we need to do is nebulous to us because I treat patients. I don't know what there is more beyond that kind of thing. Why can't I just hire somebody to do it? Well, yeah, you could hire somebody to do it, but now you don't know how to manage somebody well, right? You don't know how to manage by statistics, and you don't know how to approach them and hold them accountable to those statistics because you're not clear. So yeah, you don't know what you don't know. You don't have the knowledge. You don't have the training. And then yeah, you don't see, maybe a lot of people don't see themselves as leaders. That was my issue. It's like I was looking for somebody to take the ownership hat off of me without recognizing that no, I could never let go of that. I always have the ownership hat, and I can't give that to someone else.
What does that mean? Like not giving that ownership
Like
hat?
I wanted someone to run the business, just let me be a PT, and if it didn't do well, I'd blame them for it instead of being responsible for the business and its growth, and looking in the mirror and saying, no, if you want this to change, it's up to you to change and get the knowledge that you need to get. Right. And so, and then it's, I think unfortunately, like, so your expertise is in the marketing space, right? And I think some owners want to just kind of give the marketing over to you and let you do it all without taking any responsibility for it. I don't know if you have that experience, but I'm trying to make something that's relatable to your situation.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, there's times where we generate a lot of leads and opportunities, but no one's calling them from their clinic, or
Yeah.
they're not following
Yeah.
up.
And so they kind of they haven't delegated some marketing responsibilities to you. They've abdicated their role as the marketing manager to use you as a party to help them in their marketing strategy. And so if they haven't really taken on the responsibility of being in charge of the marketing for their clinic, they look at you as taking over the marketing, and then they're no longer responsible for it. Or, you guys are supposed to do all the work and get me a bunch of patients, and just kind of abdicate that responsibility instead of working together with you, right?
What would you say would be the correct thing or the responsible thing for the owner to do instead of abdicating it? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Could you talk on
So
that?
again, this goes back to they have to have the time to do this. So if they're treating patients, they don't have this kind of time. And even 2 half days a week probably isn't sufficient, but it's a place to start. Recognize that you have to have a marketing strategy that covers the 4 key areas of marketing for a physical therapy clinic. There are 4 buckets, if you will, and I steal this from Steve Line. He's a very successful physical therapist in Nebraska, and he did this article in Impact Magazine, and I did a podcast episode with him about it, and I loved it so much because it was clear and clean, and I can then easily share it with people like you today and my coaching clients. But there's 4 buckets. There is physician referrals, right? There is marketing to past patients, which should be a large list of people. There's marketing to current patients to get family and friend referrals. And then there's marketing directly to the consumer, which covers a lot of stuff of which you are a part of. That's what you do at medical practice referrals. Am I right?
Right. Yeah. Specifically Facebook in
right.
that direct to consumer role.
So you would be in that 4th bucket. Now, if they say, okay, I'm gonna maintain my patient if they were to take if you came to me, this would then become my marketing strategy. I'll keep my relationships with my physicians, and then I'm going to give out this direct to consumer stuff to you. And I'm not going to even focus on that 4th bucket that I talked about. I'm just going to focus on physicians, which would be a recipe for, I wouldn't say disaster, but it's not going to be successful because I've abdicated it and I let you do all that marketing. But if I'm in charge of marketing, and if you don't have a marketing director, then you are in charge of marketing. What you should be saying is, I'm going to keep marketing to the physicians and keeping those relationships to keep those referrals coming. I'm going to use Edric and his team to help my direct to consumer outreach program And I need to set aside time to monitor that program, to manage it, to communicate with Edric and his team. And I need to set up this plan going forward that Edric and my team and his team, we're going to meet. I'm going to pick something, Edric, and maybe it goes differently than this. I'm going to meet with him Wednesdays at 3 p.m. every week to monitor what the referrals were like that we received and what we could do differently, what we need to do better, and then to map out our plan for the next week. And we're going to look at statistics when we meet on a weekly basis. And then we're going to encapsulate those on a monthly basis, which is a little bit bigger or a little bit longer meeting, maybe a little bit more detailed about what we want to do for the upcoming month and what our expectations are going forward. And so do you see the difference? Like, I'm going to be intentional about bringing on Edric and his team. And intention means I'm going to follow up. We're going to brainstorm together. We're going to look at statistics together. And that's delegation versus abdication. And it's intention. There's a big difference there. Intention and planning.
Yeah, no, that's huge. Yeah, I have a lot of clients that are fit into that bucket of abdicating the marketing role and then not wanting to take any responsibility at all. When we do review the numbers, here are all the leads generated. We go into the CRM, we look at how many calls were made, and then there's no calls, and then it just goes downhill from there. So
yeah, and that's where it would be important if you're starting to see that as a trend among some of your PT owners, and I'm sorry if this is me coaching you a little bit, but
no, that's
hopefully
fine.
you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is where you see that and say, this is how our relationship is going to be most successful. You're hiring me on as essentially a marketing assistant, right? But in order for my services to be most successful for you, we're going to need the following things, right? I'm going to track these statistics, and we're going to meet, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we're going to meet weekly and review these statistics and what your team and my team are doing to improve them. If you cannot meet with me weekly, I would strongly recommend that we do so. But if you can't, just recognize that a lot of our efforts might be, maybe this is a good word for you, maybe it's not, wasted. A lot of our efforts might be wasted because we need to work together on this. We're not working alone in a silo to support you. This is a teamwork effort. And I'm going to share with you what you need to look for and what you need to see, and also what your team needs to do in order for me and you to work well together and be most successful. And that's where you on the front end can kind of prep what a successful relationship looks like.
Wow, that's huge. Thank you for that. Yeah. I'm definitely going to use that on all of my onboarding calls from now on.
Yeah, and if you have it, and even better, if you have it written out for them as part of the contract or agreement, and say, listen, these are some of the things that we expect out of you and you can expect from us. If we're going to do these things, and in order for these things to be most successful, it's going to also require you to do the following things. And maybe that, I don't know if that's part of a contract necessarily, but just something that an understanding, written understanding between both people. And I would recommend you go through it bullet point by bullet point. Yeah. And they're going to say, well, I don't have the time to do this. Well, then you really need to consider going forward with this relationship, because you're going to spend a lot of money and you're going to get a ton of referrals that are going to die on the vine if you don't have the time, right? So you need to decide now if this is going to be important enough for you to put in this kind of commitment. Wow. And so when you give them that ahead of time and you say, I know you can do it. I've got multiple PT owners that have significantly improved their businesses. And it's because they followed this formula, right? And I know it can be hard, and I know you're busy, but if you're looking to get significant results by working with us, this is the formula that we've seen can happen. And I know you can do it. I'm willing to work with you side by side on this, but this is what it's going to take.
That's awesome. That's great. Is there anything that you want to say about, like, any misconceptions about coaching that you want to just put out there? Or
well, when we say coaching, I guess the biggest misconception is just people don't know what it is. right? You could say consultant, you could say a coach, excuse me, you could call it a number of different things, but no matter what you call it, people haven't been coached before. Well, I guess if you could make the analogy to sports, maybe let's do that. I mean, we could, what is a coach? What is a consultant? And a coach is someone who's going to see where you're at. So imagine a basketball player. A coach is going to see how well are you dribbling? What does your shooting form look like? What are some of the practice routines that you're doing? And where are your weak spots, right? And so figuring out what are your strengths? What are your weak spots? How are you doing well in generally? And this can be seen through statistics. You want to share stats with your coaches. They'll ask you about different parts of your game. Where do you think you're weakest? Where do you think you need help? And they might have some ideas on their own, but they'll ask you as well. And then start stretching you, start asking you questions. Like if it's a basketball player, okay, well, I'm going to have you shoot right here underneath the basket 100 times until you hit it 100 out of 100. And the person who's getting coached will be like, why were you doing this? because he's laying a foundation for that basketball player. And a coach in a business sense would do the same thing. We should establish purpose, values, vision, goals, all these things. You might say, why are we doing this? Right. So they'll make you do things you wouldn't do on your own. They'll stretch you to force you to do things, again, you wouldn't do on your own. And they'll establish goals with you to make sure you hit the targets that you're looking for. So if I want to improve my free throw shooting percentage, I hire a coach to help me out. Well, that's the goal. We're going to get to be an 85% free throw shooter. And I'm going to work with you and do all the drills with you to get to that point. And it might even make you do some stuff that you don't want to do in order to get there, but knowing that it's going to achieve the goal that you're looking for. So it's a matter of, I made the analogy and maybe it's still not very clear, but most coaches they're going to work with you on a routine basis, some weekly, some bi-weekly, some monthly. They're going to expect things out of you. They're going to give you action items to perform in between calls or Zooms or whatever that is. But their main focus is to help you achieve your goals for your company. And they'll do that by giving you some organization, some structure, to push you to be a better leader and to focus on key statistics.
Right. And I think that the holding people accountable part, plus the knowledge and awareness that you have in your experience is super, super valuable for anyone that needs coaching. How are you still taking new clients these days?
Oh yeah. I'm always taking clients. I set aside time every week to do free consults with people. They can reach out to me, Nathan at ptoclub.com. You can even text me. It's 480-695-3343. And we can set up a time. Before the call, I'll probably send you a short little questionnaire to get some of the details about your business, so we don't have to hash all that out on the phone call. But also helps me go into the call with a little bit of a mindset as to where you're at in your business. But yeah, I'm taking coaching clients. So I've got a mastermind, I've got the podcast, I've got one-on-one coaching clients. I've got different levels of engagement for people who are simply looking for a resource. You can either be totally passive and simply listen to the podcast, or we can have a very close one-on-one relationship where we get together a couple times a month.
Awesome.
And other engagement levels in between.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just one last thing before we end the call here. What's life like now for you? I know you have a family of 9, right? And before the business training, during the old days when you weren't running the business properly, and what life is like now for you.
Yeah, back in the day, and a lot of owners might be able to relate to this. It was so imagine I had a newborn, right? And the baby might wake up late and go to bed early, kind of thing, right? And I would work until 7, 8 o'clock at night, seeing patients and then finishing up notes and maybe doing some extra business stuff afterwards. And then get up early, sometimes like 4 in the morning if I was busy, to finish documentation. And so I can be to the clinic at 6:30 or 7. And doing that a couple days in a row would mean I would not see my baby awake for 3 to 4 days at a stretch, right? So that's where I started as an owner. I was like, this sucks. I need to do something different. And it even extended further. It was like I go on a 1-week vacation and I would be getting calls almost every day, every other day from my team down in Arizona. Hey, so-and-so doctor called, want this, or so this patient's upset. And so-and-so put in their 2-week notice. And always something, the fire always caught when I was gone. And so by the time that Will and I sold, we could go on vacation and we were just fine. We didn't have those calls. I had a regular schedule where I focused on the business. I wasn't treating patients at the time. Had a leadership team that was amazing that would take care of all that stuff for us. And I was focused on opportunities like selling my business. And so now, I have 7 children. And so that is a family of 9. Yes. I'm focused on whatever opportunities I get excited about. So I'm getting back into diagnostics, EMGs, and musculoskeletal ultrasound, specifically up here in Alaska where we live. Looking at other PT opportunities, doing more coaching, and honestly doing some real estate stuff. It makes it a lot of fun. So that's the cool thing about when you're really wearing that owner hat well that I was talking about, and you have admin teams, leadership teams, and teams that are producing and in line with your purpose and values. You can sit in that ownership seat and look at opportunities that either could be further growth and expansion of your current clinics. It could be real estate. It could be stocks. It could be other ventures. It could be in the physical therapy space. It could be without it. And that's fortunately for me where I'm at now.
Well, that's awesome, Nathan. And again, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about your experiences and drop some knowledge and advice. Especially, I learned a lot today on this call
Oh,
as
cool.
well.
Oh,
Definitely
good.
back.
Well, like I said, man, I was just flattered that you would invite me, and I wish you the best. I mean, people that are listening know that when it comes to social media marketing, which isn't which physical therapy owners haven't done a lot of. They really don't know how to do it. They don't know what it entails. Edric is an expert in that. And so if you're listening and thinking about working with Edric, talk to him about what makes a successful social media campaign, and he'll guide you and I won't say hold your hand, but he'll work with you as long as you give the time to him to make it successful. And I know personally some of the owners that have made it successful with Edric, and their clinics have been vastly changed by the work that they've done with him. And it's been super helpful. And they've seen more new patients than they've ever had in the past, and have grown and expanded. And it's because of their work with him. So I'd highly recommend people reach out to you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Nathan. I really appreciate it. And well, so there it is for episode 1.
I'm the first. Awesome.
So,
hey.
Yeah. Alrighty, Nathan. Hopefully we'll have you back here on this channel again, and to ask you some more questions if you're free in the future. So
anytime, man. Anytime. I'm open to it.
Great talking to you, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Take care.
Take care.